One match. That was all it took. Just 90 minutes into the 2026 World Cup, the tournament had already claimed its first casualty. Gone. Finished. And what makes it even more remarkable is that this had never happened before. Not once in the entire 96-year history of the World Cup had a nation made a move like this. If you think this was simply an emotional reaction to one terrible night in Mexico, then you're missing the bigger story. The problems had been building long before that opening whistle. Let's go back to where it started. Sunday evening at Estadio Monterrey in Guadalupe. Tunisia kicked off their World Cup campaign against Sweden, and things got ugly fast. By the final whistle, Sweden had dismantled Tunisia 5-1. The Swedish attack cut through Tunisia's backline with ease, creating chance after chance as if there was no resistance at all. Alexander Isak got on the score sheet. Victor Gyökeres found the net. Matthias Svanberg added his name as well. It ended up being one of the heaviest defeats Tunisia has ever suffered on the World Cup stage. But the most painful part was still to come. One of the players who scored twice that night was Yasin Ayari, and Ayari's story made the result even harder to swallow. His father was born in Tunisia. That meant a player with Tunisian roots had just scored a brace against the country of his father's birth. If someone had written that into a script beforehand, it would have sounded too cruel to be believable. After the match, Sabri Lamouchi faced the media and described the situation as painful. At one point he said, "We are shooting ourselves in the foot. We are hurting ourselves." What he didn't realize was how accurate those words would become, because less than 24 hours later, he was out. At first glance, firing a manager after a single World Cup game sounds completely irrational. It looks like panic. It looks like a federation losing its head. But once you look beneath the surface, the story becomes much clearer. The truth is that Lamouchi's position was already hanging by a thread before Tunisia ever arrived in Mexico. Start with the results. This wasn't a successful coach who suddenly had one disastrous night. During his time in charge of Tunisia, Lamouchi managed just one victory in 5 matches. 1. And that lone win came in a narrow 1-0 result against Haiti. That was it. And the build-up to this World Cup had already been a nightmare. Tunisia opened their warm-up schedule with a 1-0 defeat to Austria. Then came the result that really raised concerns. They were completely overwhelmed in a 5-0 loss to Belgium. 2 preparation matches. No goals scored, 6 goals conceded. That's when whispers of unrest inside the camp began to surface. But poor results were only part of the story. The bigger issue was what was happening behind the scenes because the dressing room was already falling apart. If you go back and watch the Sweden match, the signs are there for everyone to see. In the 72nd minute, with Tunisia struggling badly, Lamouchi decided to substitute defender Yohan Benalouan. Benalouan didn't try to hide how he felt. As he left the pitch, he was visibly frustrated with his manager, showing his anger in front of a worldwide audience watching live. When players are openly showing that kind of frustration toward their coach during a World Cup match, it's usually a sign that the relationship has already broken down. Then there's another detail that shows just how serious the situation had become. According to reports from inside the camp, Lamouchi brought his son into Tunisia's training base during the team's World Cup preparations. The federation reportedly did not take that lightly. Officials were said to be questioning why someone outside the official delegation had been given access to the squad. As a result, Lamouchi was reportedly asked to explain the situation. Just think about what that means. Before Tunisia had even kicked a ball at the tournament, there was already tension between the manager and the very people who had put him in charge. The players were growing frustrated. The federation had concerns. The results were getting worse. The defeat against Sweden wasn't the reason Lamouchi lost his job. It was simply the moment that finally triggered a situation that had been building for weeks. And somehow, the story gets even more unbelievable, because Lamouchi ended up making World Cup history for a reason no coach would ever want. In all the years this tournament has existed, no manager had ever been dismissed after just a single match. World Cup coaches have lost their jobs before, but never at this speed. Back in 1998, Tunisia parted ways with Henrik Kaspersak after a disappointing start, but he was still given 2 matches before the decision was made. At that same tournament, South Korea removed Cha Boom-kun after suffering 2 defeats. And in 2018, Spain made headlines when they dismissed Julen Lopetegui just 2 days before the World Cup began after learning he had secretly agreed to become the next Real Madrid manager. But after just one match in a World Cup, that had never happened before. Until now. Lamouchi is the first. And here's another incredible part of the story. This isn't even the first manager Tunisia has dismissed this year. Back in January, they parted ways with Sami Trabelsi following their elimination from the Africa Cup of Nations at the hands of Mali. Lamouchi was brought in as his replacement. He signed a deal that was supposed to keep him in charge until 2028. Instead, he survived only 5 months. One thing is clear about this federation. They don't waste time. They don't sit around waiting for things to improve. When they decide a change is needed, they make it immediately. So when you're dealing with a crisis in the middle of a World Cup, who do you turn to? Tunisia's answer was one of the most recognizable figures in international football, Hervé Renard. Even if the name doesn't sound familiar, you've probably seen him before. Renard is the silver-haired French coach known for patrolling the touchline in his trademark white shirt. And he's making a bit of history himself. This World Cup marks his 3rd consecutive appearance at the tournament with 3 different national teams. First with Morocco in 2018, then Saudi Arabia in 2022, now Tunisia in 2026. And it's that spell with Saudi Arabia that really grabs attention. At the 2022 World Cup, Renard guided Saudi Arabia to one of the most stunning upsets the tournament has ever seen. They defeated Lionel Messi's Argentina in their opening match, a team that would eventually go on to win the entire competition. So if there's a coach with a reputation for stepping into difficult situations and producing something unexpected, it's him. Renard is arriving in Monterrey to take charge of a squad that has been through a turbulent few days, and he'll have almost no time to work with them. Wabi Khazri, the former Sunderland midfielder who served as Lamouchi's assistant, will remain with the coaching staff under Renard. The challenge ahead, however, is enormous. Tunisia's group is unforgiving. Japan are next. After that comes the Netherlands. That means Renard must find a way to stabilize the team immediately against 2 of the strongest sides in the competition, all while managing a dressing room that has just seen its head coach dismissed. Not exactly an easy assignment. Now I want to know what you think. Was this a bold and necessary decision from Tunisia? Or did they hit the panic button and damage their World Cup campaign before it really had a chance to begin? Do you think the players played a role in forcing Lamouchi out? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe because we're only a few days into this World Cup, and managers are already losing their jobs. Something tells me Lamouchi won't be the last. I'll see you in the next one.